Joining us now for more on this matter is Glynnis Breytenbach, who's a member of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice. Glynnis, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Upon your reflection after the version that was given by the Justice Minister to the committee on Friday over the weekend, what came to mind, and where you're standing currently? Are you still convinced that something could be untoward here?
Good morning, Alden, and good morning to everybody. Yes, you see the difficulty. There are several difficulties with this scenario. So the minister has always maintained that it was a commercial loan, a proper arm's length commercial loan, which she has repaid. That remains to be seen, and it's not really for us as members of Parliament to decide upon. That will be for the police to investigate and the National Prosecuting Authority to take a decision on. Looking at it, it looks a little dodgy. The money flowed in a very short space of time from the municipality to VBS, to Gundo, and to the minister in the space of a very short space of time. And bearing in mind that Gundo is not a commercial bank, and so the municipality was not supposed to, not empowered to, not permitted to, in terms of the FMMA, to invest in a mutual bank. There's a problem there. And then, of course, the fact that Gundo is not in the money lending business. So those are issues that need to be traversed a little more deeply than we were able to do on Friday. But that is not the reason or the sole reason why we say the minister should step down. And I still hold the view that the minister should step aside for the time being. Let this investigation be dealt with. Let this matter reach its finality, and then we'll see where we are. But certainly there was a conflict of interest between being the mayor of Polokwane, investing in VBS, money flowing from VBS to Gundo under very strange circumstances, and then money flowing to the minister in a loan that is certainly unconventional. There appears to be a conflict of interest there that needs to be properly looked at. But there's an absolute conflict, a glaring conflict of interest between the minister today as the Minister of Justice, who sits at the top of a pyramid of the criminal justice cluster, and she's also being investigated. And the Hawks have confirmed they've raided the office in Polokwane. They've received documents and cyber forensic evidence, and there's an active investigation on the go. There's absolutely no doubt that the investigation is prosecutor-led, and so the NPA is involved, and the minister holds final responsibility for the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's an untenable situation for prosecutors to have to investigate the sitting Minister of Justice. It makes their job's already difficult. It makes their job much harder. And especially, in our history in the last 10 years, it makes it even more difficult. And so if the minister is serious about saying that she supports the National Prosecuting Authority, she believes in the rule of law, and she wants justice to take its course, then she should really step aside and allow this matter to be investigated to its finality, and then we'll see where we are. But that there's serious conflicts of interest that is ineluctable.
Yeah. On that issue around conflict, the point that was also raised during the sitting on Friday was that, yes, while the NPA would fall under the Department of Justice, its functions are clearly set out in the Constitution, including acting without fear and favor. And that's their constitutional, it's the constitutional obligation that the NPA has. You did paint a picture of, at some point, how, for instance, Vusi Pikoli, there was a push for Vusi Pikoli not to prosecute Jackie Silibi at the time, who was the police commissioner. Is that enough, though, to say that on that basis, therefore, the minister should step aside?
That is illustrative of how the Minister of Justice is able to interfere, did interfere in that instance, and the disastrous results for the criminal justice system as a result of that. That is illustrative. I'm not suggesting that this minister will interfere. I'm not saying that she has interfered. All we're saying is perceptions are everything. She sits at the top of that pyramid. If she's serious about saying that it will be a hands-off thing and she has no interest in influencing it or trying to influence it, then she should have no difficulty stepping aside. The conflict of interest is glaring. It exists. Whether it's acted upon or not is irrelevant. It exists. And South Africans, generally speaking, can only view this entire situation with a very jaundiced eye, bearing in mind our history. To have the sitting Minister of Justice in office while she's being investigated, it's an untenable situation. And frankly, in her own interests, to preserve her own integrity, she should step aside.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any other alternative aside from the step aside. And just thinking now of the matter that was brought before the High Court in Pretoria against the then President Jacob Zuma in the appointment of Advocate Shaun Abramson. The court said that, listen, because the NPA would also be looking into matters relating to yourself in terms of the corruption at the time, the NPA had decided not to prosecute. But the court then said that because of this conflict that exists, it should rather be the Deputy President who would then appoint the NDPP. Do you think that such an alternative is available outside of the stepping aside for a minister?
She's the minister. There's nowhere else for her to go. She can't become the deputy minister. She must step aside. Somebody else must either take over in the interim, or the deputy minister must take up the position on a temporary basis, or whatever. It's up to the president. He must decide. But it certainly is within the purview of the minister, even though she serves at the pleasure of the president, of course.
Yeah.
To go to him and say, in the interest of justice, in my own personal interest, in the interest of the country, I want to step aside, allow me that until this investigation is done. This investigation doesn't have to take forever. It can be expedited. It's not big. It's a very small portion of the VBS issue. It really can be done in a very short space of time. It doesn't have to take forever.
Okay. As the DA, you also have members that are in cabinet. Is this a matter that would be brought before cabinet? I know that the minister says that she has already spoken to the president. We're not too sure, though, at this point, whether the president has accepted her version.
I have absolutely no idea what transpired at the meeting, and I'm unlikely to ever know. So what the president accepts and doesn't accept, I also don't know. But even if he accepts her version, it doesn't remove the conflict of interest.
And this is not a matter that the DA would bring before cabinet?
Oh, certainly I would. I think we've already brought it before cabinet in the sense that we've called for her to step aside. The president will have to give it some thought.
Okay. Is this something that in this particular case, because of course the government of national unity is new to us in the sense that there is this agreement between the various political parties and there's contention over a particular individual that is part of cabinet. When you look at the agreement that the various political parties have signed in terms of the government of national unity, is there a platform available to ventilate issues of this nature even before it gets to cabinet?
Certainly, I think there's a platform available. As you say, this government is new to all of us and we're all finding our way. But I've got no doubt that my colleagues in the executive will traverse this issue when they have the proper opportunity.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. That is Advocate Glynnis Breytenbach, a member of the Justice Portfolio Committee of Parliament.